The ancient spacecraft had crashed on the forgotten moon of Kethris nearly 3,000 years ago. Its hull, twisted and burned from atmospheric entry, had become something else entirely over the centuries. The local species had given it many names. The Varathi called it the Death Tunnel. The Crixian traders named it the Fool's Grave. But across the galaxy, most knew it simply as the Dragon's Cave. Inside that wreckage lived something that had survived the crash, something that had grown powerful beyond measure, something that collected treasures from every corner of the known universe and guarded them with a proud fury that turned even the bravest warriors into ash and memory. Kira Vasquez stood at the entrance of the cave, her human eyes adjusting to the darkness ahead. Behind her, 7 other species had gathered in the makeshift camp the treasure seekers had built over the centuries. They watched her with expressions ranging from pity to amusement. A Varathi merchant with scaled purple skin approached her. His name was Thax, and he had been running betting pools on who would survive the cave for over 40 years. Nobody ever did. He looked at the small human female with something close to sympathy. She was barely past her 20th year by human counting. Her species was young in the galactic community, having only achieved faster than light travel 3 generations ago. They were considered primitive by most standards, fragile, short-lived, unremarkable in every physical aspect. Thax had seen thousands of treasure seekers enter that cave. Warriors from the Crixian Empire with armor that could withstand plasma fire. Hunters from the Shadow Nebula who could become invisible to every known sensor. Psychic assassins from worlds that had mastered the mental arts for 1,000,000 years. None of them returned. And now this soft-skinned human girl thought she could succeed where they had all failed. Kira checked her equipment one final time. She carried no weapons, no armor, just a small pack with basic supplies and a strange device she had built herself. The other treasure seekers had laughed when they saw her preparation. The Crixian champion had brought enough firepower to level a small city. The Varathi assassin had carried poisons capable of killing gods. This human brought a music player and some snacks. She walked into the darkness without looking back. The cave swallowed her immediately. The walls were not stone, but ancient metal, twisted by heat and time into organic shapes. Bones littered the ground. Not just bones, but weapons, armor, and the scattered remains of technological marvels from 100 different worlds. Kira stepped carefully over the skeleton of what had once been a Crixian warrior. His armor still glowed faintly with protective energy. It had not saved him. Nothing ever saved anyone here. The first chamber opened into a vast space filled with treasure beyond imagination. Mountains of precious metals. Gems that pulsed with inner light. Technology from civilizations that had risen and fallen while humans were still learning to make fire. The wealth of empires lay scattered like children's toys. And at the center of it all, something moved. The creature they called the dragon was not a dragon at all. Kira had done her research. She understood what it really was. The beings that had crashed here 3,000 years ago were called the Eternals. They were a species so advanced that they had transcended physical form entirely. They existed as pure energy, pure consciousness. But this one had been damaged in the crash, broken, driven mad by isolation and pain and the endless parade of creatures who came to steal what it considered its own. It rose from its treasure pile like a wave of darkness and fire. Its form shifted constantly, taking shapes from the nightmares of every species that had ever dared to enter its domain. Wings of shadow, claws of lightning, eyes that burned with the cold light of dying stars. The creature looked at the small human and felt nothing but contempt. Another thief. Another fool. Another brief moment of entertainment before the inevitable killing. It spoke directly into her mind with a voice that had shattered the sanity of beings far stronger than her. Why do you come here, little creature? Do you seek wealth? Power? Glory? They all seek these things. They all die seeking them. Kira did not flinch. She had prepared for this. Humans were strange that way. They prepared for everything. They made plans and backup plans and backup plans for their backup plans. She sat down on the floor of the cave, cross-legged, as if she had all the time in the universe. "I came to talk," she said simply. The creature's form flickered with something that might have been confusion. In 3,000 years, no one had ever said that. "Talk?" it repeated. "You cross the galaxy, enter my domain, face certain death to talk?" Kira nodded. She pulled out her music player and set it on the ground beside her. Then she reached into her pack and brought out something wrapped in cloth. "I brought you something," she said. "Not treasure. Something better." The creature moved closer, its form condensing into something almost solid. Curiosity was not an emotion it had felt in a very long time. Kira unwrapped the cloth to reveal a simple book. Paper pages, handwritten text. The kind of primitive object that most galactic species had abandoned millions of years ago. The creature stared at it with all 7 of its burning eyes. "What is this worthless thing?" Kira smiled. "It is a story," she said. "My grandmother wrote it. She was a teacher on Earth before she died. She collected stories from all over our world and wrote them down so they would not be forgotten. I thought you might like to hear one." The creature's rage flickered. No one had ever offered it something freely. No one had ever come here without the intention to take. "You think a story will save your life?" Kira shrugged. "Maybe. Maybe not. But you have been alone for 3,000 years. You have killed everyone who ever came here. You have all the treasure in the galaxy, and you are still the most miserable creature I have ever sensed. So I thought maybe you did not need another enemy. Maybe you needed a friend." The silence stretched for a long moment. Then, the creature did something it had not done since the crash. It laughed. The sound echoed through the chambers like thunder, shaking loose ancient dust from the ceiling. "A friend," it repeated. "You think we could be friends, little human?" Kira opened the book to the first page. "I think we could try." She began to read. The story was simple. It was about a lonely giant who lived on a mountain top. The giant was feared by everyone in the valley below. They sent warriors to kill it. They sent priests to curse it. They sent thieves to steal from it. But none of them ever thought to simply climb the mountain and ask the giant why it was so angry. Until one day, a small child did exactly that. The creature listened. It had not listened to anything in centuries. It had only roared and burned and destroyed. But something about this human's voice, the rhythm of her words, the simple truth of the story, reached a part of it that had been buried under millennia of pain. When Kira finished, the creature was silent for a long time. "Your grandmother was wise," it finally said. Kira smiled. She was. She used to say that the universe is full of lonely giants. Most people are too afraid to talk to them. But giants need friends too. The creature's form began to change. The fire dimmed. The shadows softened. For the first time in 3,000 years, it allowed itself to remember what it had been before the crash, before the madness, before the endless killing. It had been an explorer, a student of the cosmos. It had traveled between stars to learn, not to conquer. The crash had broken more than its physical form. It had broken its spirit. "Why did you really come here?" the creature asked. "Truly?" Kira put the book back in her pack. "Because I read about you. The old records from before you started killing everyone who entered. You were a scholar. You studied music and art and stories from every world you visited. You collected beauty, not treasure. The treasure came later, stripped from the bodies of those who attacked you. But that is not who you really are." The creature moved back as if struck. "No one remembers that." "I remember," Kira said. "Humans are good at remembering. We are not strong like the Crixians. We are not clever like the Varathi. We do not have psychic powers or advanced technology or any of the things that make other species powerful. But we remember. We tell stories. We pass them down from generation to generation. And we believe that every creature, no matter how frightening, has a story worth hearing. The creature was silent for a very long time. Then it began to speak. It told Kira about its home world, about the civilization that had created it, about the joy of discovery and the thrill of learning something new. It told her about the crash, about the pain, about the first treasure seekers who had come with weapons drawn and murder in their hearts. It told her about 3,000 years of loneliness. Kira listened. She did not interrupt. She did not judge. She simply sat in the darkness and let the ancient being tell its story to someone who actually wanted to hear it. When the creature finished, it felt lighter than it had in millennia. "What do you want, small human?" it asked. "I will give you anything in this cave. Any treasure. Any weapon. Any piece of technology your species could use to advance 1,000 years." Kira stood up and dusted off her clothes. "I want you to come with me," she said. "I want you to leave this cave and see what the galaxy has become. I want you to meet other humans and share your stories with them. We have schools on Earth where children would love to learn about the worlds you have visited." The creature flickered with something like hope. "They would not fear me?" Kira laughed. "Some of them would. Humans fear everything at first. But we are also the most curious species in the galaxy. Give us 5 minutes, and we will be climbing all over you asking questions." The creature considered this. It looked at the mountains of treasure surrounding it. Wealth beyond measure. Enough power to conquer star systems. And none of it had ever made it happy. "Very well," it said. "I will come with you. But I have one condition." "Name it. Tell me another story. From your grandmother's book." Kira smiled and opened the book to the next page. Outside the cave, Thax and the other treasure seekers waited. Hours passed, then a full day. They began to assume the human had died like all the others. Then Kira walked out of the darkness. She was not alone. Behind her came something that made even the bravest warriors fall to their knees. The creature that had haunted their nightmares for generations emerged into the light for the first time in 3,000 years. But it did not look like a monster anymore. It looked almost peaceful. Kira walked past the stunned crowd without stopping. The creature followed her, its form shifting slowly into something less terrifying, more curious. She glanced back at the treasure seekers who had mocked her. "You can have the treasure," she said. "All of it. We are going to get ice cream." She walked toward her ship, the most powerful being in the galaxy trailing behind her like a loyal pet. Thax watched them go with his mouth hanging open. He had seen thousands of treasure seekers enter that cave. Warriors, assassins, psychics, machines, all of them seeking power through force. And the one who succeeded was a small human girl with a book of stories. He shook his head and began packing up his betting operation. After 40 years, it seemed the game was finally over. "Humans," he muttered to himself. "They never do anything the way you expect."